All right, we're live with Rita Gigante, psychic, medium, and healer. What's up, Rita? How you doing?
Awesome. So good to see you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. How were the holidays? Because when did we talk last? Oh, before the holidays. You came on before the holidays, and we talked
Yes.
about your book. Right.
Yes.
So how were the holidays?
Holidays were great this year. Very peaceful. It was just awesome compared to some of the others in the past.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton of people and it was just right, so to
Oh,
speak. You
good
know?
to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always a nice time of year, and usually I have a ton of family, but this year I actually had COVID, so
Oh
I couldn't
no.
go anywhere. Yeah, it was crappy, but what are you gonna do?
I feel like it's on the rise again.
Yeah. I
So many
think
people I'm hearing.
yeah, I know. Tell me about it. So, for people who don't know,
Yes.
Rita Gigante is the boss of Vincent Gigante, who is the former boss of the Genovese crime family. She is now a psychic medium healer. She also wrote a book called The Godfather's Daughter, which is a great read. I suggest everybody go and buy it from on Amazon, or you go to Rita Gigante's website, and it's a Rita Gigante psychic. Is that right?
RitaGigante.net.
Okay, RitaGigante.net. I apologize. And recently, and I didn't know this, I actually watched it. I watched like three-quarters of it. You were on one of the largest podcasts in the world, basically. You were on Soft White Underbelly.
Yes.
How,
It was
how
just
did that how did that go?
I I'll tell you, I was um first of all, the man that I was working with, he was just such a nice, he was a gentleman. He really was. He was a gentleman, and all he said to me was just talk, tell me your story. He didn't ask anything. He just wanted me to tell my story, and I love the impromptu of that, or just the organic way it flows, because it's authentic and people can feel that. And that's what I like about that kind of stuff. So I just began, and it ran through for almost, I think it was an hour almost. And um, and when we were finished, he was like, can you come back for part two? Like, can we do a part two? And I'm like, oh my God, yes,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
absolutely.
his channel is more of an art form than anything else. First of all, you don't know who the host is. He's never around. You don't hear his voice. The only person you hear is the guest. And the people he has on, it's all about them. And just like you said, all he does is say, just tell your story. I watched the one with Michael Dowd. I watched the one with John Alight. I
Yeah.
watched, there was one with a girl who was addicted to plastic surgery. There was you. There was several, prostitutes, convicts, drug addicts. I mean, I always go on that
Mhm.
podcast. It's a tremendous podcast. But unfortunately, I kind of want some credit, so I don't. I'm always on mine.
Oh,
So
I'm giving it to you.
thank you. Donna McDine says it's an absolutely fabulous must read, which she's
Ah,
obviously talking about your book, which I agree
yeah.
with.
She's one of my good friends, and
Oh,
she
okay.
she just, oh my God, she has been such a great help in my work as well. She really has.
So one of the things that I wanted to really get into is really, you're probably sick of talking about the mafia and so on and so forth. I can only imagine because ever since I've known you, that's what you've been asked. But I kind of wanted to talk more about your gifts and what you do for a living and
Sure.
how that happened. And I know your upbringing had led to that. So I really
Yeah.
wanted to talk about that. And then I wanted to see, if only if you feel like it and only if you feel comfortable, if we could do something, right here, you know.
Sure.
Oh, great. So
Sure.
why don't you tell us how you actually, because it's a fantastic story, how you actually realized that you had these gifts.
So for me, I was born with the Claire sentient energy, which means I could feel everything, and which really means that I was an empath, extremely sensitive. Part of the problem was back then nobody really knew what that meant. So I'd have a lot of anxiety attacks, panic attacks, um, depression, OCD. And it was most of my life until I put myself into therapy at 19. But it was growing as I was growing. And I just didn't understand it. And I didn't understand why I would go into these deep depressions, and sometimes from 3 weeks at a time, you know. But when I got into my mid 20s, I started to realize what the gift started to mean. And I didn't even know what to call it a gift then. But I went to massage school. And when I was in massage school, I was able to, when I was massaging and I had my hands on somebody, whether they were still or they were moving my hands, I can feel energy. And then I would ask the body questions, like what was going on. Because if I felt stagnant energy, or like it wasn't moving, or there was too much, it was cold in one area or hot in another area, I'd start to ask the body questions, not even knowing really if I get any answers, you know. But it was kind of like an instinctive thing to do for me. And then the body started to talk to me, and I started to get messages. Now, I didn't know where those messages were coming from. So at that point, I didn't know these were psychic abilities. Okay. So I started to, I want to say, so my first gift was the clairsentient, where I could feel. This became my second gift, which was claircognizant, which means to know something. But I didn't know how I knew. So if I had my hands on somebody's back, their lower back, and I felt their kidneys, and I felt there was something going on with the kidneys, I'd actually ask the person just to get confirmation, like, I'm feeling something going on in the kidneys. What's happening? There it feels like a cold temperature to me, or whatever it was that I was feeling. I'd give them the description, and they'd say to me, "Oh my God, this is I have kidney stones, and this is what's been going on, and blah blah blah." So I was stunned when that happened. I had no idea how I knew something like that. I didn't know kidney stones at the time. I just knew that there was something going on with the kidneys. It's later on, the more I did that, the more I had hands-on practice, I started to realize that then I would start to see what was going on, if it was in the kidneys, the liver, wherever it was, the heart, the lungs. So I could tell if somebody was a smoker, not because I smelt it or anything like that, but I could feel it in their lungs,
Wow.
And so as time went on, that gift became very strong. So those two gifts are the ones I really used for a very long time, until I began to see. So the clairvoyant piece came in next. So I began to see visions. My first vision was of Christ in a window in a church. And I was there to experience what was called the laying on of the hands.
Okay.
It was an incredible experience, because first of all, I had no idea what was going on, really. But there would be people speaking in tongues. There would be people being able to understand what was being spoken, but couldn't speak it, and vice versa.
Okay.
And I was just like watching, like, oh my God, what is happening? Like I had no idea. But I was open to it. And after they did they were doing prayers and all of that, I just sat there, and it was only me, and there was a lot of us there, but only me and 6 other people saw this vision. And it was of Christ, and he was in this huge window in the church. Just from, I want to say, from his chest up, you could see him. Okay. And it's interesting, because he appeared to me like I was taught by my family of what he would look like. Okay.
Right.
Which wasn't necessarily what Christ looked like. Okay.
Right.
Other
That's true.
people
Yeah.
saw him differently than I did. They saw him in a way that they grew up thinking that he would look. Okay. So, but we all said it was Christ, and we all said we experienced it. I was in awe of this. I felt his energy so deeply. I knew I was supposed to work with him somehow, and I didn't know how. Half hour later, I leave the church. A half hour later, I'm compelled to come back and sit. He was still there.
Really?
The energy, the image of him was still there. And I just prayed. I sat and I prayed. It was probably one of the most beautiful experiences of peace that I felt. After I did that, I did the laying on of the hands, which is where the priest, puts his hands on you, and they call it being slain in the spirit, where the Holy Spirit comes through you, and a healing occurs, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, or a combination of all. So I had no idea what to expect, but immediately, when he didn't even have to get his hands on me, I went down like a feather.
Really?
They brought me to the floor. The priest put his stole on my forehead, and he prayed over me.
Wow.
And I, in my life, never felt that kind of peace other than when I was sitting praying. But it was even deeper than that.
Okay.
And so I said to myself, I don't want to get up. And I asked, because it was almost like I was in a still point. When you're in a still point, when I'm working with somebody doing energy work and they're in a still point, which is like they feel like they can't move, and I know that they're not supposed to move yet because the healing is happening with spirit. So I felt like I was in a still point, and I said, do I have to get up? And he said, no, but I have to give you a message. Now, priest never, ever gave me a message.
Me neither.
Okay? Right?
Yeah.
Never hear of that. But he wasn't the average priest.
Okay.
The man was from Italy, and he had like broken English, and he said to me, Christ told me that you will be healed fully, emotionally, in 3 years.
Wow.
And then he took his stole off my forehead, and he said, when you're ready to get up, you can get up.
Okay.
And from that moment on, my abilities increased tremendously.
Okay.
Tremendously. So then
Was it
I started,
accurate? Was it 3 years?
It was.
Was it accurate? Really?
It was. But what was
Okay.
happening, so when you go through a healing process, I want to explain to people, it's not necessarily fun. Okay? It's sometimes very painful. So for people who don't know what the dark night of the soul is, it's where you go into a place to shed something very old and something very suppressive in the body. Things that maybe when you grew up, you, as a child, went into the subconscious mind, a negative thought pattern, something that you experienced that might have created PTSD that was still in the body physically. And now it was coming out of my body. This was not an easy thing.
Really?
So each time it happened, and it happened a total of 3 times.
Wow.
Each time it happened for a minimum of 3 weeks. Okay?
Wow.
And I would experience anything from, getting up in the middle of the night, sweating profusely, to deep depression, to I can't eat, you name it, I was experiencing so many symptoms. I thought I was dying. I went for every test you could imagine, to every doctor, and nobody could find anything. I was finally introduced, and Spirit was so good with this. They would just introduce me to people that were already working with Spirit, and that could help me, and guide me. So I was introduced to a couple of people that were able to help me through the physical process of what was happening.
Okay.
And then I understood what it was because I had a name for it, the night of the soul, right? And I had to be patient with that because, again, it was like a 3-week period that each time it happened. But when I came out of it 100 times stronger because I shed so much of the old energetic familial stuff that then I had so much more light in my body because of it. And every time that happened, my gifts would increase.
Really?
So it just then the clairaudient began, which was I can start to hear things. Okay.
Wow.
Sometimes I would hear it in my head. Sometimes I would hear it mostly in the front of my head. Sometimes I'd hear it in my voice, and sometimes I would hear it in somebody else's voice. Okay. So I considered myself at that moment a psychic and a healer. And a teacher, because I did teach this as well. And then when my father passed, I knew I was a medium because he came to me
Okay.
and he spoke to me. And that was my beginning of realizing, oh, I didn't know I was going to be a medium, but here it is.
Okay.
And so it happened very methodically. Um, I would say it, for me, it had to go in more of a slower way because I had to adjust my energy every time I went through it. And so if I went through it too fast, it could be, a lot worse. So
Okay.
spirit really brought me through it in a way that I could understand it and adapt to it.
Okay. So
Um,
when you say spirit brought you through it,
yeah.
what exactly do you mean by spirit
So
brought you through
so
it?
everybody comes with guides that connect to them. Some of the guides are with you your whole life. Some of the guides that come are interchanged. Like there'll be a guide maybe that's helping me with one aspect of the life. When I've completed that aspect, that I don't need that guide anymore, they may go to somebody else, and somebody else may sign on and help me with something else.
Okay.
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 And then there are some that stay for the duration. There are also angels that come and connect to you and help you through the process as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I have one question,
Sure.
and it threw me off actually a little bit because my friends at work, if everybody who watches this knows that I'm a sewer worker in New York City, so I'm a real blue collar guy, right? Yeah. And so I have a good friend at work. His name is Frank, and he's Dominican, and we're always working together.
Yeah.
And I said you might want to tune in tonight, Frank. I'm having Rita Gigante on, and she's a psychic medium. And you and I both grew up Roman Catholic, and I'm assuming he did too because he's Dominican. And he goes, I can't watch that. I'm Christian.
Oh.
And I didn't pry because I didn't want to offend him, because you and I had a discussion last time about how I should keep my mouth shut sometimes, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Do you? So
I
I
do.
kept my mouth shut, but I didn't understand what he meant by that. Do you know what he
Because
means by that?
there are some aspects, the Christian aspect, some of them don't believe in this. It's like voodoo. And
Ah, okay.
so they think it's, creating bad energy if they connect to it, that they just, it almost like a false, like a false idol or a god or. And when I talk to people, I explain to them that it really doesn't matter what you call it because it's all one. I like to call it love, and because I work with the Christ energy, I'm working with the energy of love and compassion,
Right,
you know.
right, 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 right,
And
right.
so I think that's what he's referring to,
Okay,
and we just have to accept that that's where he is, and that's okay.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, that clears it up because I didn't understand what he meant by that. But all right, I get it. Donna McDine actually has a question. How accepting was your family early on as your gifts came to light?
Um, I don't think they believed it quite honestly. They didn't know what to believe until much later when they were getting, I want to say, information from other people that they either met me and they or had a reading with me and they started to understand. Oh wow, okay, she really does this, you know. And it's not that they weren't accepting; it's just that they didn't understand it. They
Okay.
weren't sure how I came to be that. We'll say, like, so.
Yeah, it would be my because we're not going to get into it because if anybody wants to know, I've interviewed Rita twice. Well, yeah, twice, and she had a very very dramatic background. And my attitude was always like, if I had a son or daughter, and they found peace and happiness through a religion or through a certain practice, and it made them a better person, then I'm all for it,
Right.
right? So I would think that after so much time, knowing, your struggles and your past, that they, I would hope that they accepted it.
Oh, now,
Yeah.
like, absolutely, they come to me for
Oh, okay, good, good.
readings, advice, all of that.
Yeah.
So, Now it's not and that's been for a while. I'm talking
Okay.
about when I was younger, they weren't sure.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
but
Okay. All
now,
right.
yeah, now there's no problems at all.
All right. What was, if you could just give us a, like, the most dramatic that you remember, one that sticks out, where you were reading somebody and something hit you like a ton of bricks. It wasn't vague, it was direct, and you told the person and they were like astonished that you knew this particular fact without knowing you.
Okay.
This probably happens to you once a week, but
Well, I'm going back a little bit because Spirit brings to mind. They're telling me about the man that came to me, and um, it was about his wife and getting divorced, and I didn't know that they were, but I mentioned to him an incident that happened on a ship, on a boat. And I explained to him in detail what it was. And he got up and he was laying down. He got up and just sat up and he just looked at me and he goes, like he couldn't even speak. And
really.
I said, it's okay. I said, I'm just, they're showing it to me because this is what you need to see so that you can release yourself from the marriage, knowing that it's okay. And so I don't want to repeat what it was, only because it's privacy thing.
Absolutely.
But he looked at me like I had 10 heads, and I said, I just said to him, I said, if you know it's truth, that's all you need to know. You don't have to say a word to me.
Right, 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 right.
So he was grateful. He walked out of there 100 pounds lighter, and he was able to go through with talking to his wife about separating and all of that. He was feeling very, very much guilty about it.
Okay.
So,
That's actually very interesting that you bring that up, because before I went to one of your seminars, and it was fascinating, right? And I had to sit in the front row, if you remember, right? And it was absolutely fascinating, and absolutely I loved it. But before that, I never really went to one. But I do remember this, and I was a kid. I was probably 10 or 12, and my mother had, I want to say, maybe 5 or 6 girlfriends come over, and they invited a psychic medium to come over, and there was, like I said, about 5 or 6 women, and he walks in, and without even saying anything, and I remember being like I had to be about 10 or 12, and he walks in and he says, "Who's getting a divorce here?" And at that age, I even remember saying to myself, well, out of 6 women, one of them's got to be on, right? One of them's got to be on the line, right? Well, I mean, really, there's going to be one that's having a shitty marriage right now, right?
right.
And I remember like not believing after that. But then I read your book, and I've spoken to you several times, and then I actually went to one of your seminars, and it's a different story now. We've had private conversations, and you made me a believer. I never thought much about it. I never really thought much about it, but I remember that one instance, and I remember even saying, like, to myself as a young kid, like because I remember it was my father's. They all say back then, they said Gumba, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was his wife,
Oh, okay.
and she was there, and they had a terrible marriage, and even me as a kid, I'm going, there's 6 of them, somebody's got to, right. But after I went to your seminar and after our private conversations and whatnot, it's totally different. So what I'm getting to is, if somebody wants to go to a medium psychic and doesn't know where to start, where do you go to research to see who the con artists are, as opposed to who the real deal is?
So here's the thing. It I like to tell people, try and go through word of mouth. Like, if you know somebody that's experienced or had a good experience with somebody, that's what I would do. Very difficult to pick somebody off the internet or anything like that because although because I'm good with reading pictures and like energy off of pictures, sometimes there's your dog, there's my dog.
Yeah, tell me about it. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
um, so yeah, I can read the picture and say I like that energy. It's good energy, but I still may not get what I'm looking for, right? So I try very much to do word of mouth, and I think it's better that way.
Okay.
Some you will resonate with, some you will not. There are people that it hasn't happened often, but every so often I'll go to read somebody and I will hear spirit say, refer them out. It's not for they're not for you to read. And I
Okay.
don't get offended and I don't get anything because energy, it just means their energy needs to connect to somebody else.
I see. I see. Okay.
You know?
Okay. And I'm sure, being in the business so long, you have several, people you could refer to and so on and so forth, right?
Oh my God, yes. Because
Yeah.
there are people that do tarot and I don't do tarot.
Ah,
So
okay.
if I know
Okay.
someone that is really good in with tarot and does it, I send them
You,
to them.
you know what's funny? Oh God, you just reminded me of another story where I remember we were in Sheepshead Bay, and if
Mhm.
you're ever in Brooklyn and Sheepshead Bay, there's plenty of restaurants. And back I was a kid. I was in the '80s, and they would sell things on the street, and there was a tarot card woman, and my middle brother was going to get married, his first wife, and she sat down to. I think I might have told you this already. She sat down to have a tarot card reading. And it was me, my mother, my father, my brother, and we're all standing around her. And all she kept saying is, "You're surrounded by love." That's all she kept saying. And again, it was like the second time. I'm like, my God, are all these people full of crap? And then, right, because it was like, no shit, she's surrounded by love. And then again, like after, and now I'm 46, so I went through all these years of like, all that's crap, all that's crap, all that's crap. And then when I went to your seminar, and then we had discussions and we had private conversations, and then you've been a major factor in my life in the last year or so, completely changed my opinion of the whole scenario.
That's wonderful.
Rita is going to hell with. Oh, get out of here! Go away. Let me get rid of that. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, no. Okay, so if you are up to it, and only if you feel like it, and only if you're up to it,
Sure.
if you're feeling anything, if you want to, read me or anything that comes to, that would be great.
So, people know I know you. So to read you, they may say, oh, well, she knows him. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, the one thing I can tell you though, is you have an uncle that continually works in your energy. That's
Okay.
bad. And,
Okay.
your job, what Spirit is saying is your job is not necessarily the job you do. Like your job at work is your job at work. But what you do here, this podcast, all of this stuff, this is your soul work, they said. And it's going to get more and more and more.
Okay.
So,
That's accurate.
yeah, so you just need to be persistent with it and continue to do what you're doing and then watch it explode.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
This is my cousin who just came in, Teresa Esposito. She was married to my cousin Joseph, who passed some a few years back. He had MS. The uncle that you might be his father because he's also passed.
Mm.
I She wants to know if she can tell if is Joe with her still.
Hmm. Joe really never left. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that he's not in spirit. He never really left her. He's there every day. Not only is he there, but you know he he does things like she may experience things and she'll like kind of brush it off, but that's him. You know what I mean? And hang on, yeah, he just said to me something about pizza, something about uh, I don't know if it's a certain pizza place, but he just keeps saying the word pizza, pizza, pizza. So I don't know what that means. Maybe she'll know what it means.
Yeah.
But he's there, and he is with your uncle. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense. That makes all the sense in the world,
I
actually.
don't know what the thing is. Did she make homemade pizza or something?
She didn't. No, not that I know of. I don't think Teresa made homemade pizza, but there might have been a pizzeria they went to. You know, they did live in Queens. I forgot what part. You know.
I don't know what this is, but it just keeps coming through, and he wants to. I don't know if she's listening. If she's listening, we need to ask her because he wants to know.
Okay, Teresa, if you're listening, was there anything relating to pizza? What you and Joe or Uncle Joe?
He
No,
just keeps saying the word.
I don't know. She'll get back to us.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
If there's anybody else that I thought I saw someone, Carla.
Yeah, call John asked Rita what signs are my grandmother giving me.
Hmm.
Okay,
You
that's
know, the minute she asked, I closed my eyes, I see yellow flowers. The minute I close my eyes, there's these beautiful yellow flowers. Um, they look like bells. They look like I don't know what they're called, but because I don't know the names of flowers, but they're white and yellow. And she's being asked to get a bunch of them to put in the center of her table.
well, you're right because she says I have them here in my living room.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
that's pretty good, Rita. You're pretty damn good.
Listen, it's them. They want to come through and they want to talk to their loved ones. I love it. I
That's
love when they do
that's
that.
just fascinating because that's what I mean by like no con artist would be able to pick that up through
Yeah.
through a laptop podcast and the person say through a comment say those are on my table right now. That would
Right.
anybody who was full of crap would never be able to do that.
Right. Thank you,
So
Carla.
yeah, thank you, Carl. Thank you very much. Let's see what other questions do I have. Well, here's one. I don't know if you could. My mother is. Carla says she loves you. Okay.
Oh, love her back.
My mother is getting very old. She's 87,
Mm.
and she's starting to she's starting to have signs of memory loss, and
Mm-hmm.
she can't drive anymore and she can't cook anymore and so on
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. And my father's been passed since 2004,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked her if she ever thinks about seeing daddy soon. And she really couldn't give me a straight answer. It was like, oh, I think of him all the time. He comes to me in my dreams. But that wasn't the question I asked. And then once again, because of our last conversation, I stopped prying. I
Mm-hmm.
just said, okay, that's fine, even though that wasn't the question that I asked. But the reason why I'm asking you this, and I'm just going to be completely frank, is that the old school Italians, there was always more than one woman.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it, I'll just keep it 100, right?
Yeah.
What do you see anything like that? Or do you see, when you're in the spirit world, do you connect to the one that you commit to, like a marriage, or is it different once you get to the spirit world?
In the spirit world, we all connect. It doesn't matter if you had an affair. It doesn't matter if, because you have to understand that before we get here, we create contracts with each other, right? And when you create the contract, that very well could be in the contract. This is
Okay.
what's going to happen. We have to learn something from each other and experience this. So when you go to spirit, it's pure love. Everybody high fives each other. It's like, thank you for the lesson, whether you learned it or not. This is going to happen. My mother and father, when you know, when anybody else, all my uncles that passed, my aunts that passed, they're all up there. No matter what has gone on between them, it all goes back to love and
Okay.
thanking each other for the experience. So there
Okay.
is no more anger, no more, you know,
Resentment, nothing like that.
nothing like
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
beauty of it. If
All
we could
right.
only do that here, it would help us not to be physically ill in any way.
Oh yeah, that's for
You know
sure.
what I mean?
My cousin Teresa wants to know how she can get in touch with you. Just give her your website, which is, God, I forgot what it was.
Actually, Teresa, just text me at 201-805-3909. That is the quickest way you'll get me.
Okay. If she doesn't remember that, then Teresa, just call me or text me, and I'll give you Rita's number. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've always thought about that. I've always thought about because we're taught that if you sin, you're in hell for eternity,
Oh, God.
and so on and so forth. Right? Is
Yeah.
all the scare tactics we learn, and so on and so. And I always wondered if that was accurate. If there was a place where you go and you burn for your sins, or is that just a myth or a way to get people to act right?
It's unequivocally not true.
Okay.
I can't even, I want to tell people rest easy. This doesn't mean you have a license to go out and just be bad or,
Right, 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 right.
commit crimes and all that. This just means that if you had a strong belief system of purgatory and you passed, you may be in a position where you don't fully emerge into the light yet because you had this idea that there was purgatory. But purgatory is not a place that exists. It exists in the mind, right? And
Okay.
if you had that belief system, you could create anything in spirit, anything you wanted. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So, but you always have guides and angels and energies around you that say, when you're ready, step right into the light completely because you don't need to be here. Okay.
Okay.
But I'm telling you right now, there's no hell. If anything, we've created it here.
Yeah, tell me
You know
about
what
it.
I mean?
I know.
But when the body is released, and the spirit moves, the soul goes, and the spirit is, we're there. That's where we go. When the most beautiful place you could be with, all of your team or the gang that you connect to, and your spirit group, we'll say. Yeah.
How far back do the see? The thing is, I think like a human, if that makes sense, right? It's like
Of course.
how far back do the generations go that when you cross over that you get in touch with? But it doesn't work that way in the spirit world, I would assume.
No, it's so there is no time there, right? There is no past, present, future. It's not like here. Everything is happening at once, and everybody is creating whatever it is they're there to create, or whatever lessons they're there to learn. So, if you passed and you said to your uncle that we were talking about, okay, I want you to show me yourself the way you were in the past life, just this past life. Well, he'll form himself that way to show you. It's not necessary, but it
Okay.
can be done.
Okay.
Okay, it's not necessary to speak like we're speaking. They can talk telepathically to each other,
Okay.
and that's how I'm talking to them now,
All
right?
right. I see. Okay.
Telepathically.
All right. If I could ask you, and again, you don't have to mention any names. Have you ever come across something that was so like so you were reading someone, and it was so dramatic, and it was so horrible that was really difficult for you to tell the person?
Yes, I experienced somebody who was traumatized sexually, like abused. And so to be witness to that is a painful thing. But I'm not just a witness to that. I'm an empath, so I'm feeling what that person was feeling at the time. And if you're not, I want to say, if you're not grounded and centered and protected, you can easily be pulled out of your energy when you're an empath. So I have to be that for them because I have to be able to hold the energy for them so that they can process what they need to.
Okay.
Now, I've had people on the table process something like that and move in like a convulsive way where you thought they were having some kind of, you know, I don't know, demonic release. You know what I mean? Like something like there was something in their body and it just had to come out. But I, I just, I said to Spirit, like when it first happened, I just said, all right, what's happening? Because I want to make sure they're safe and they're okay. And Spirit says, just be still, let it flow, let it happen. We're here, we're bringing them energy. They have to release this. And when they were done, and this particular person lasted 10 minutes like that, convulsing on the table.
Oof.
Like arms and legs moving and when they were done, they completely shed one of their most difficult abusive experiences as a child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was
wow.
amazing.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah.
It was amazing. They couldn't move after that. Like I had to give them a lot of water and I had to give them something to eat and I had to let them rest for like 20 minutes before they can get back in a car because they weren't grounded at all.
Wow.
Yeah. So people have to feel safe. You know what I mean? They have to, when
Yeah.
they come to you, they really need to feel safe and know that they're okay. That's it. It's, part of the responsibility of a healer to have that, set up for them. It's important.
Speaking of which, do most people that come to you, are they ready, are there times where people come to you and you could tell that they're kind of blocking it, if that makes sense? I don't know if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I've had that. I've had all those experiences. And Spirit says to me, um, when they come to you, you don't worry about if they're blocked or they're not blocked. If they're coming to you, they will get something out of it. It could be the smallest thing. But then I've had times where I heard Spirit say to me, stop the session. You need to tell them, this is where they need to go. This is who they need to see. Okay.
Okay.
And respectfully, I stop the session and I tell them and I give them the information that they need. Now, whether they go or not is up to them. But people will respect that instead of me just, I keep going till the end and they pay me for the session, right? That's not how it should work. Like if I'm not supposed to work on them and somebody else is, then that's what has to happen.
I see. Okay.
It's very important that they get to the person that they should be with.
Okay. Another question. I would assume that the early signs of being an empath, I would assume that there probably are a lot of people that ignore it or just don't acknowledge it or don't pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the early signs of being an empath? And what are the steps you would take to, if they're having these signs, what are the steps they would take to pursue a career like yours?
So for me, it was I was feeling, I would walk into a supermarket and feel exhausted, or I would walk past somebody and they would brush up against me and I would feel intense anger or grief or something like that. And I knew I walked in there fine and I
Right.
walked out feeling like crap, right? So the earliest sign I had was I realized it wasn't my energy, it was somebody else's energy. Now at 5 years old, I didn't know that.
Right.
I just thought, you know, I just thought I was sad and I didn't know what was going on. But I did know around the age of 7 that I was picking up my mom's stuff or my dad's stuff or somebody in the family. And but I didn't know what to do with it. That was the problem. So I would just feel it and move through it, but not know what to do with it. The one saving grace, the one saving grace was sports. It was my outlet. It was the way I got out of my head and into my body.
And what did you play? What kind of sports?
Uh, so I was
If
a
you say
tomboy.
if you say basketball,
No, actually, I did play basketball. I had a
really?
softball, but only 1 year of that. But
All right.
when I was really young, it was softball. It was football, believe it or not. It was, I was a tomboy, so I did everything from, dirt bikes to, you know, to all the sports. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted the physical contact.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
I
Right.
wanted
Right.
to
Yeah.
feel myself in my body.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it makes sense because there's also when you're exercising and when you're doing something physical, there's a lot of endorphin releases and
Yeah.
it always makes you feel better. That's why generally speaking, professional athletes don't have anxiety or depression. They actually have it when they retire.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes all the sense in the world, and that's one of the reasons why I'm a big gym goer, because that's the only thing that kept me grounded. We all go through our issues, right? We all go through our
Sure.
problems, and I've had panic attacks and depression since I was 10 years old, but not as severe as yours. Obviously, you're a different example, but like you said, the one saving grace was I fell in love with the working out and the activities and so on and so forth, and that always helps. So that makes all the sense in the world. But let's talk about the future for Rita Gigante. And
Sure.
are you going to be on any more big podcasts like Soft White Underbelly?
Well, he's asked me to come back for a second interview, so I love that.
That's great.
Yes, I've had other people now reach out to me since that and ask me to be on their show. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I have a manager now and he's wonderful and he continually is working to get me out there. My biggest love is to speak on a stage, to the masses. I just, to bring the kind of light and love that I know Spirit is brought through me. I just want to share it. I
Yeah.
just want to share it. And the book for me was a healing tool for me, but it was also, it was for others as well. Like I took something very personal, but I rendered it universal so that everybody can take a piece of it. There's something in that book that someone can connect to.
Right.
And that was the stepping stone to get me to speak. I love my one-on-ones, I love my healings and all of that, but my true love is to be on the stage.
Yeah. And once again, that book is called The Godfather's Daughter. You can get it on Rita's website. Oh,
Mhm.
and you could also get it on Amazon. And I've read several true crime books and mafia related books. This is nothing like that.
Mhm.
This is about Rita and her struggles and her coming into her own and realizing who her family is and her becoming a psychic medium healer. It is a tremendous read, and believe me, take it from me, I hate reading. I despise it. If I can't find it on a podcast, I bought this book, right? Because I do this thing once a week, right? Where I talk about gangs that were in New York, right? I bought this book. This is how far I got this 2 months ago. This is how far I got. That's it.
Yeah.
But Rita's
Yeah.
book, Yeah, but Rita's book I couldn't put down, and I remember like texting you in the middle of the night about the book, and the next day I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? What did I do?
I love it. That's
Well,
great.
Rita, thank you very much again. Always much love, much respect, always, and we'll always keep in touch. And keep me. Well, I'm always, I'll always check your Instagram and Facebook and your
Sure.
website. But keep me posted about any more seminars that you do and talking to crowds, because I'll be there. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely, honey. Thank you so much, and sending love right back.
Thank you, of course, anytime, and thank you. And I'll be in touch. I'll text you later.
Okay, you got it.
All right,
Stay
bye bye.
safe. Take care. Bye bye.